So we are here. Welcome, everybody. It's Ellen Lewis and company. Yay! And this week, I wanted to sort of record a little conversation with some of the folks who have made having a local yarn store really special for me. Some friends that have, been part of the community and some who are newer. But I wanted just to sort of discuss about, why a local yarn store community is important, and just let the conversation kind of go from there. So I have beautiful Amy Briggs. Wave, Amy. Terry Wood.
Hello.
Joe Mike Burrows. And Joe McDonald.
Hi.
So we were talking a little bit before just about why come to the yarn store? I mean, if you're not, sometimes you're here and it's not necessarily because you need to buy yarn, right? So why come?
Why not?
Right?
It's true.
Well, it's common interest.
Yeah.
So, if you liken it to maybe even like a sports team or something like that, everyone gets together to do the same thing, So, a lot of what I see that goes on in here is sharing ideas and frustrations and fix-its and all that kind of stuff. So, a lot of times that's why I'm here.
Sharing frustrations.
It's a great place to come for inspiration, too.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Just
Yeah.
general camaraderie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's nice to be able to walk in and squish the yarn.
Yeah.
Well, I'm fortunate to live near enough that I'll be working on a project at night and be afraid I'm going to make a mistake, so I stop. I say, I'm going to come in the morning. Jenny might be here. She knows me well. And I'll say, I'm not sure what this means. Because knitting patterns have a different language that sometimes I misread, if you will.
Yeah.
So there's always somebody here to go, well, this makes sense, or, and I encourage you.
Just kind of
So
validation.
encouragement.
Yeah. You're mighty shy.
Yeah. All of a sudden.
Right? Little Miss Chatty Cathy is all of a sudden shy.
I like the experience of coming in and people asking me what's on my needles and me asking people what's on their needles, and then we admire each other. And sometimes I'll say, wait, what yarn is that? And it's a yarn I've heard of and I know, but when I see them working on it, all of a sudden I think, oh, I think I like that yarn better than, it's a little different once I see it being worked on. So it's inspiring. Or I see what pattern they're working on that I've never heard of before. And I don't know, it's just fun. That creativity kind of bounces around, I think.
Well, I tend to come in on Wednesdays, and there's a core group of people that are here. And if somebody's missing or whatever, it's almost like, well, does anybody know what's going on today? It's like, it's become, the thing that I do, like that gets worked into the schedule. And I tell you, we kind of keep each other honest and on track with projects and that kind of thing. So, that's a plus for coming in as well. And on that regular basis anyway, so.
Right. I mean, we could all knit at home, right? We could all knit at home, and we probably do. But there's something different about knitting at the yarn store.
Mm-hmm.
What is that?
People. I love people. I'm a people person, so that draws me in.
People, it sparks your
Absolutely.
interest in what else you could make.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or several people get interested in the same project. Well, then you've got a knit along, and everybody's working on it at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so much fun when you have someone else working on the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You can see where everybody is.
Yeah.
If you get to a spot where you're not exactly sure, well, somebody else is at that same spot or has just passed that same spot, and they can say, well, this is how I did it. Or maybe you don't like the neckline on the sweater that everybody's knitting, and you say, well, I want to do this differently, and somebody says, well, we could do it this way, and you come up with ideas together and bounce things off of each other.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of a collective brain,
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
collaborative, yeah.
And I do think knit-alongs keep me, even though we don't have deadlines, hard and fast, But there is something in my mind. I'm not that competitive about it, but it's just like, oh, I want to stay on track. You know, this is not strict homework, but it tends to just keep me moving through the project better, a
Does
little
it
bit
make
better.
you feel like you're like shamed when you end up on Sleeve Island?
Steve Island.
I don't know. I've taken cruises around Sleeve Island, but I don't have too much of a problem with Sleeve Island for some reason. But yeah, what you said, Joe, like if there's a little hiccup or a bump or something, or like, 30 miles of stockinette you got to get through, it's good to have a, sometimes, you'd say, let's try to get to here by, next, a more formal knit along. And it helps me to, have that
That's me too.
one
Yeah.
more row.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think setting goals, or small goals or objectives in your knitting really does kind of help.
I think it's kind of fun too because everybody generally picks different yarns or different colors, and then you get to see your sweater in someone else's color and go, oh, I wish I had done that. But not always. But it's nice to see things done differently, how different it makes the sweaters look.
Right.
Well, and knowing what their experiences are with different materials too, that I might not have that experience with, so that helps as well, I mean, there are things in here that I might never look at until someone, says, oh, well, I tried this and I really like it for this reason, and, and I might have walked right on past it. So, the experience, everybody's collective experience is valuable.
We kind of have a policy at the yarn store that, while we don't have regular scheduled knit nights or whatever, they're sort of unofficial. Like Joe, Mike, you said you come in on Wednesdays because Mary's there, or it just works with your schedule.
Yeah, yeah.
That's your time. Those are your people.
Yeah.
But you didn't always come, right?
No, I did not. For the longest time, I felt like Crazy for You was beyond my skill set, and
Did
that
we
I
make you
didn't
feel
belong
that way?
here. No. I started out knitting socks, and it was just, there's a long history of why I started it and that kind of thing. But the first time I came in here, I was actually getting my car serviced, and I was like, it's a weird time of the day. I'm like, no one's going to be in there. I'll just look around, and if I don't like it, I'll leave. And Jenny Mae was in here, and of course we got talking socks, and that was that. Well, then for the longest time I would just come in, buy yarn and needles, and leave. And one day I came in to get needles, and it was on a Wednesday, and that core group was in here, and they're like, you got your knitting bag with you? And I was like, yeah, it's always in the car. And they're like, go get it and come sit down. And that's the way it started. Yeah, it wasn't planned that way, but and then I've definitely upped my knitting game trying to keep up with all of what they're doing. So, I never thought I would knit a sweater, and I've knit 3 since November. So, it's just, but they keep you on track. And, if there are issues or I'm feeling uncomfortable, it's, oh, let's take a look at it. And, and it's safe. It feels safe.
Yeah.
So
It is safe.
no judgment, so, I mean, I surely don't mind knitting anywhere. I could care less what other people think, but, it is nice to have that common ground, when you come in. So for me, that's why I keep doing it.
Well, I'm glad that you do.
Well, thank you. Thank you
And I
for
think
letting
there's
me do it.
something about, I think in general, my experience with knitters is that they're very generous people and very encouraging. They're never going to tell you that you stink at it or something.
Yeah.
But also, if I were knitting scarves or I was a beginner, knitters love that. They love beginners. But then watching them knit a sweater, pretty soon I start believing that I've got a path there.
Yeah,
Maybe that barrier is kind of gone, rather than just looking at the sample and thinking, there's no way I could get from this to that. you kind of experience what they're doing, and I think it gives you, confidence.
Yeah.
But it is funny too. I've been in here when somebody will say, I just was not happy with that sweater. I undid it all. And I'm like, really? We could do that? Undo a whole project that we've spent hours doing? So you learn.
Are there
That can
rules?
be done.
Are there rules about that? You've just undone something.
I did. I just ripped out because I love this yarn, and I didn't want a sad ending for it. So I'm making it into something that I think it will suit it better, and at the size that will be better. So one thing I didn't rip out is kind of a funny story and a poignant one. I was knitting my husband a sweater back in 2017, and I was just poking along, and he, about Labor Day that year, had what should have been like a routine stent, and he crashed during the stenting. It was in a awkward place, and they did 9 minutes of CPR on him. I'm happy to say he's alive, but during that time, here I had this sweater, and he immediately lost all this weight. And I thought, do I start the sweater over? I just kept making it smaller and tapering it in. And he always loved the sweater. He didn't care that it was bulky up here and, it was kind of too big everywhere, but it did come in a little bit. And it was then therapy knitting at that point, because I was getting over everything I went through with him. And my daughter said, I've always wondered about that sweater on Dad. And I told her, I said, oh, you know why it fits like that? And I told her the story. She goes, oh, don't change it. You're right. That now I get it. And it's one of those sweaters that tells a story, I know exactly where I was and what I was doing.
I love that because you share a story like that, and everybody can instantly kind of relate, and connect. And, it feels like
sorry, Terry.
we know you better. I never knew that about Rich.
Yeah. Yep, he had a very close call, and now his cardiologist said if I didn't have your file, I would never know you went through what you went through. So he's doing great.
Very good.
Yeah.
It's interesting how when we have a group of people sitting around the table, less so now, I think, because we're recording, everybody feels a little, it always feels sort of awkward. You don't want to say something that you think is going to be foolish or whatever, that's going to be recorded for posterity or whatever. I hope you don't feel it like that, but I get it, I get it.
Well, we won't gossip.
Do
So-
we gossip at the store? Do we,
We do sometimes share health matters, things like that, things people have gone through that
I don't think it's ever
might can
malicious.
benefit them.
Never
No.
malicious gossip.
Yeah,
It's
never
No.
nasty.
catching up
just-
gossip.
right, we're sharing about ourselves and people
Yeah.
that we all care about.
Yeah.
Right, have
Yeah.
you seen so-and-so, what's going on
Yeah.
with her or him?
Their long
I
stories,
forced Terry
whatever.
to tell me about her old travel stories.
Oh, yes.
You've been
Yeah.
everywhere, and all your shopping trips.
Yeah, back in the day, that's for sure. Yeah.
But don't you find that sitting around the table knitting, it's perfectly okay for there to be silence?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There is.
There have
Oh,
been
yeah.
times.
Right.
If you're counting and looking at a pattern.
Or
It's
ju-
fascinating. I've been here where nobody's saying boo. You can tell they're counting.
It's so funny because non-knitters always start counting crazy because they think it's so funny. They think you've never heard that before when you say, wait, I'm counting, and they're like 7, 10. And knitters never do that. They never do that to you.
But there's something about the being together and knitting, like you said, everybody doing the same thing with this shared interest that bonds you together and makes you feel sort of safe to share some of the more private parts of yourself.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Oh, definitely. I think that's what happened to me with the Wednesday group that I come in to see. We figured out that we had common connections outside of here as well. And that while we didn't really know each other, we knew people in common and that kind of thing. And so that bridged a gap too, you know. So it is very comforting and safe. And like I said, I could care less what people think about me outside, you know, whatever. I do what I do, and if you don't like it, whatever. But it's not that way in here. It's, oh, what did you do? You know, what have you done since last week? Or, you know, what are you working on today? Or gonna buy yarn today? You know, any of that kind of conversation. So it's like you walk in the door and it starts immediately. And, you know, I have no reservations about coming, and so I do.
I have walked in yarn stores before where I felt like I was intruding.
Mm-hmm.
More, you know, not that you're not welcome, but that you're intruding on something, and I've never felt like that here.
There's a thing about when you're leading groups, or like I learned this at church, through church, that the welcoming of people, making people feel welcome is not passive. You have to go and do it and think about it, or you'll just stick with your own crew. And I think that might affect some yarn shops. I think sometimes they're just not thinking about it, because
Yeah.
sometimes I've been there and I've wormed my way in and gotten to know them, and then it was fine, but they didn't understand that first little barrier they put up.
Yeah, I don't think it's really intentional, but you just kind of feel like sometimes you're intruding into a small group space
Yeah.
that you need to be welcomed into to be there.
And I don't know if there's a difference between the East Coast and out west where I used to live, but even up from Leonardtown, because we're just north of Washington and Rockville, and I feel like people are a little more closed off there, shop people. And so coming down here is really kind of a breath of fresh air, because I feel more of that. Hey, come on in, you know. I'll help you. Let's knit. All the staff is so experienced and helpful, and it's just a delight.
Well, I think, you know, I always feel like, I don't anymore, but I'm the outlier, you know.
'Cause you're a guy.
Yeah, and it's like, but I've never felt that way here. You know, everybody's interested in what I'm doing, just like I'm interested in what they're doing. So I've never felt, you know, like I don't belong here, you know. And it's really changed what I do, because it's really upped the game for me. You know, I'm doing things now that I've never thought I would do. So I think I told you one time, if you dare me to do something, I'll try it once. And it, you know, it was like, you got to knit a sweater, and I knit a sweater. So, you know, but it took help from the people that were here as well. I think one day Terry was in here and I was looking over her shoulder as she was doing something, just to, I think you were seaming or something. I don't even know what you were doing. And I was like, you know, I'm just going to look over your shoulder and see what you're doing. So, you know.
She was.
Remember that.
She was in Zen mode,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Well, if you're seaming, you better be.
I love seaming.
I do too. Yeah, I like some.
So, yeah, it's changed a lot of the way I think about things, and confidence in, you know, I do have this skill set, because like I said, I never thought I did in the beginning. And, you know, go to Michael's and get some sock yarn and make something that'll fit on your foot, and now it's, you know, I can't use that stuff anymore.
I think that's funny how your perception of the yarns changes over time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because then when I first started knitting, Michael's was a great place.
Yeah.
You go and you buy that yarn. Oh, look at this beautiful yarn that I got. You go home and you make something and you wonder, why doesn't it look so good?
Yeah.
And then, and you go into a yarn shop and you go, oh my gosh, this yarn is so expensive. But then you try it and you go, oh, this yarn is just to
Yeah.
die for. You have to have it now.
I've learned
Yeah.
so much about fibers and
Yes.
fabrics
Yeah.
through the yarns. Noro's a great example. You know, the wools and silk combined, and yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a yarn snob when it comes to what I put on my feet. So, I mean, I want some soft yarn in my socks. So,
Do you only wear hand-knit socks?
yes.
Oh.
And I have enough that I can do that now. So,
How many pairs of socks have you knit?
oh gosh, I couldn't even begin to tell you because when I was working at school, if I was working on socks, 9 times out of 10, somebody claimed them before they were finished, you know? So it's like, oh, I'd like those. And I'm like, well, here. And I didn't bat an eyelash. And then it became precious to me. I'm like, why am I giving all this stuff away? You know? But just because I can do it, you know? But yeah, no, I am a little precious about
So
that.
do you still have the very first pair of socks you
I
made?
absolutely do.
I do too, and I try to put them on sometimes, and they're so horrible.
Yeah.
Like they don't fit.
Yeah.
They're like way bigger than my feet. One's way bigger and one's way smaller, and they don't stay up, and they're not the same height. So how did I make these? You think they were great?
Yeah, yeah.
I have a pair that I don't even think the heel got turned all the way. Like one of my first ones. I'm like, that's not a heel. That's like a gross. That's not even a full heel. How'd I do that?
I was sitting knitting a pair of socks one time, and I'm going, oh, it's toe time, because it was time to start. And I started making the toe, and then I kitchened it and everything. I held it up and looked at it. I had done the heel. I had made about this much foot, and then I did the toe. I don't know what I was thinking, and it was for me. It was so funny. So I had this little itty bitty sock.
It was for Barbie.
Yeah, big heel, big toe, no foot. Things you do.
I actually have the first thing that I ever knit, which looks like Swiss cheese at this point, but I was curious, and that's what got me into knitting. Is there was a lady that I worked with that she knit a basket weave pattern in all these blankets that she made for baby showers and stuff, and of course, you know, being at school, I had to attend the baby showers, and I got so curious about how did she make that do that? And so she's like, I'll show you. Oh, that day, in my mind, I'm just like, oh, I think, like I said, I knit more holes in it than I knit anything else. And I kept it, but I don't know whatever, because it was a long time before I picked it up again. And I'm not really sure what that was, except that it was still there, you know, and it was like, oh, curiosity got the best of me. So, and then after that, it went downhill from there, I guess. But there could be worse habits to have, I suppose.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, you
Yeah.
know.
Did she teach you to knit, or had you already learned how to knit?
No, she taught me how to do it in just the knit stitch. There was no purling or anything like that. And it was in burgundy, some kind of burgundy acrylic that, I mean, at the time I was like, oh, okay, we'll do this. And I don't know. The funny thing is, I'm left-handed, but she taught me to knit right-handed. So that's the way I do it. So, which, from what I hear sitting around the table around here, that's a blessing, because the way patterns are written and that kind of thing, they're not written for a left-handed person. So we actually had that discussion one Wednesday. I guess we all stopped and noticed what each other was doing, and it was mind-blowing that everybody was getting to the same end, but you know, the way they were going about it was completely different. So it's fascinating when you really think about it. I mean, there's so much more to knitting than just putting stitches on a needle. I mean, as you said, there's a story, and you know, there's a comfort to it, and your choice of materials and colors. I mean, there's the individual in there, which a lot of things that you do, you know, it doesn't always spark that. And I mean, I like to do creative things. I used to do a lot of painting and pottery work and that kind of thing, but like I said, nothing is as portable as, taking my knitting bag with me.
I think there is something about being a maker. I've always, since I was a little girl, been a maker of some sort, Started embroidering when I was little, and then I sewed out of necessity because I needed clothes when I was in high school. And now I just love making things, and I used to bake when I was a kid. And so people say, well, why do you, it would be less expensive to buy a sweater or to go buy clothes instead of make them. And I said, yeah, but I feel better if I'm making. That's what I do. I just like to make things. So.
Well, don't you think it's sad now? And I mean, I don't know what the demographic is that comes in on a regular basis, but, young people that are stuck in their phones and, watching videos constantly about what somebody else is doing, but they're not actively doing it. It just makes you wonder, like, you could be doing so many more things than just, I watch my share of videos with figuring out how to do things, but, I see that a little bit differently than just endless scrolling, because that is definitely not for me.
Well, generally when two or more knitters are together, they're knitting and they're talking, and you look at other groups of people, like you go in a restaurant or anywhere and you see a group of people sitting at a table with their phones out, looking at their phones. And what's the purpose of going out, making the effort to go out with people if you're not going to have a conversation while you're with them, if you're not going to look at them while you're with them? And I feel like when you're making something, when you're knitting, you're communicating and you have that back and forth, and it makes it worthwhile.
Well, and I think that's the beauty of having a yarn store too, that if you are remotely interested, you can come in and explore. Taking me back to the first day I came in here, I kept thinking, I know I don't belong there. I kept walking by it, and then the one day I was just like, I'm going to take a chance today. What's the worst thing that can happen? You turn around and walk back out. So, but it's nice that the availability is here, that you are making this space available for anyone and everyone who wants to explore.
What made you think you didn't belong?
Well, I think for me, the biggest thing is I felt like I had one skill set. I knew how to knit a sock. I knew how to knit the same sock over and over and over again. But that was all I knew how to do. I guess I didn't think about breaking it down into the individual components of, there's more to that sock than just knits and purls. There's construction and yarn choice and all those pieces in there. But then when you go to knit a sweater, the same variables are there. So on a bigger scale. And I think once I got over that I'm doing the exact same thing. It's just, you can do this. So, that got me beyond the fear, I guess. And my new mantra is, it's just yarn. So if it doesn't work or it doesn't look the way you intended it to look, rip it out and do it again.
Just one stitch after another.
Yeah, it's just yarn. It's not like you're hurting anyone or, anyone's going to have a problem as a result of it. It's, you make it yours.
Yeah, unlike brain surgery, if you make a mistake, nobody dies.
Exactly.
It's just brains. No,
Yeah.
it says no
It just
surgeon
becomes-
ever.
Says no surgeon ever. Oh,
Yeah.
this doesn't matter. I'll just wing it. If it's not right, I'll rip it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes those mistakes are just like creative inspiration in there. I think I'll do this right here.
I
Wouldn't
meant
it
to
look
do
nice
that.
if we put 6 pearls in the middle of this knit row, just
Yeah.
for fun?
I meant to do that.
I don't want to be on the table when a doctor has that attitude.
When he gets
No.
when he gets a creative.
I think think I'll just snip a little bit over here on this side.
I don't even want to be in it like a hairdresser's chair.
I correct more things now than I used to because I know it's going to bother me later. But if I don't, I don't correct everything.
But don't you think that's skill set too? You've got experience.
Yeah,
to be
and
able
I
to
can
do
go
that
after
now.
that little
Yeah,
mistake and
yeah.
rip
Whereas-
it down,
Right.
drop them babies down and wrestle with it, knit it back up. But you know, like I used to always say to Susie, like if you can't, because there's some saying about you can't see it on a galloping horse or a galloping horse. So I don't remember how I construed that, but if a toddler can't see it from riding on the back of a galloping horse or whatever, or we tease with Ellen like that, if you make a mistake so bad that there's like sirens out front, then you best be correcting it. But I don't see any sirens.
No
yet.
knitting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what's good about
Awesome.
your yarn store too, the companies, the Rowans, the Noro, send you samples. And that helps me. I like to be
Yeah.
able to
Come in and try on things.
try on those samples. I've had a few that I loved on the mannequin, but wasn't good on me necessarily.
I've seen quite a few that I loved on you.
Oh,
That would maybe not be as good on me. But
So
talking
that's
about
fun.
samples, like events where
Yes.
the samples are out, the events here are always really fun.
Yeah, that is
Teas
a-
and we have a special Noro Day where all the things are here, or the Rowan collection is here.
yeah, that's always helped.
I think there's some good bonding moments because everyone's twirling, everyone gets a little freer about showing off when they try the samples. And it's a lot of fun.
Who was here? You were here when when we were all like doing our fashion show, modeling the garments, and then Ginny, who actually was a professional model,
That's right.
put on that top, and she just did her walk, and we were like,
Was that-
"Alrighty then."
Was that black and white
Yes.
striped one? I
Yes.
remember with
And
the
then she
blue
says,
and
well, I
stuff.
didn't really model so much as I taught modeling. Like that was a lesser experience. Yeah, that was pretty
But
cool.
when I look at Joe knitting socks, I'm more comfortable with a bigger needle. I'm on a 9, and your needle's probably
A 1.
1. I mean, I took a sock lesson, and when we were using 1s and, 2s even, maybe a 0, I don't know, but I remember really these. So I realized my comfort zone is the bigger. How did you feel using bigger needles when you did your sweaters? and stuff? Do you like
I mean,
that?
it's a learning curve. It's
Oh,
definitely
okay.
different, but I also know which needles I like, and
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I wouldn't have that experience if I hadn't come in here. And
But being
sometimes I
retired,
amaze
having
myself.
that time with people, and even though I'm retired and at home, I get distracted. I'm doing things, so I need to do this and that. So I've learned when I come in here, I can just focus on knitting, chit chat if you want, but I get more done knitting wise because I can. And I saw you last Wednesday. I'm going to start coming on Wednesdays. It's a
Yeah,
good
we have
plan.
fun in here. Or I think we do. Probably
We did, yeah.
people may not want to see me come in here, but I think it's fun.
Why would you say that?
I don't know. I just
We
had
love to
I just
see
had to
it.
say it. Some things you just have to say.
When we come to the yarn store and we wear something that we've made, people are excited about it and they understand what it is that you've done by making this thing that you have on your person, right?
And they don't say, you could sell that.
Oh, right.
You could probably sell that.
Right. I would pay $30 for that top.
Or
right.
I have sweaters like that. I've seen it. You could sell it for $100. I said, the yarn costs more than $100.
Yeah.
It is special.
Right.
But knitters don't say that to each other. And they don't say, well, I do say, will you make me one? Because we all know no one's going to make me anything. But as a joke, but people's like,
Yeah.
oh, well, I need this. I'm like, not that bad, you don't.
Let me know how that works out for you.
You have to be very knit-worthy to,
Yeah.
the person has to be very knit-worthy for you to take the time and put in the effort and the thought to make something for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If somebody gives you a hand-knit gift, then you know that you're special, that they think a lot of you, and there's a lot of thoughts of you and kind feelings about you and love for you that have gone into that as they made it. Every stitch has a meaning.
Oh, yeah.
There's like a hug knit into it, and so it's very, you have to be a knit-worthy person for someone to do that for you, I think.
You do. And you have to realize that some people don't really want you to knit for them.
Yeah.
That's okay
No.
too.
Yeah, and
Some
it is.
people
yes.
that are related to you might not, doesn't mean anything to them, and they don't mind if you knit all the stuff. But,
Yeah.
and
my
that's
husband's
okay.
like that. Don't knit me anything because I will not wear it. But here, let's go to the yard store, get you some yarn because I want you to be happy, and that's fine. It means more knitting time for knitting for me.
Mhm.
But he doesn't. It's not his thing, and he knows it's not. And now I know it's not. So he's not knit-worthy. I mean, he would be knit-worthy if he liked wearing the hand knits, but he doesn't. So they don't realize how much time and effort go into making a garment. Then they don't truly know how to appreciate it. They've never seen someone sitting and doing that, or putting the effort into doing it. Just like with anything else. I mean, it's easy to go to the store and buy a cake, but it's a whole different experience to actually make a cake from scratch and give it for someone. So,
And also, with me, it's the decision making. Like if I'm knitting something for my husband, he's there giving me,
Yeah.
But if I'm knitting something for someone, I want it to be a gift that I don't tell them about. I get stuck in decisions sometimes. I overthink it.
overthink it, I don't think that.
So I've tried to get more practical about what that person actually likes, and not put my own likes into it as much as just what they would really like. So that takes some of that angst out of it.
Don't make a lace sweater for somebody who wears sweatshirts.
Or like a pink sweater for someone who wears black and cream or something. I mean, I wouldn't do that, but, well, maybe I would have at one point. Not noticed, just thought, oh, they look so good in pink.
Or I was thinking when you said that just meant you'd get it back and then you'd have it.
That's true.
It's probably the wrong way to look at it, but just make it in your size.
That would be a good sitcom, actually, for a knitter to plan something they really liked and then give it away knowing that they'd get
That it
it.
would come
You gotta
back.
get it back.
The boomerang sweater. We should start that old wives' tale about the boomerang sweater.
But my family's all in Florida, so it was a lighter cotton, whatever. But that's one. I did buy a brioche hat that Jenny had made
Yeah.
because I love the look of brioche. I took a lesson once. I don't have the patience. My brain cell isn't going to spend the time on brioche.
I'm terrified of having to rip it back.
Oh no, let me tell you.
It took me so long to do my cowl.
I just finished a brioche shawl. Matter of fact, that's what this
Really?
yarn is left over from. That's why it's become socks. And I had so many lifelines in it. And Jenny, one day I was in here and I was like, I don't usually say too many bad words, but my favorite one is Fruit Loops. And I'm over here going, Fruit Loop, Fruit Loop, Fruit Loop. And she's like, did you make a mistake? And I'm like, yes, and I don't know how to fix it.
Oh, I know.
And she immediately swooped it up and she said, come over here and look at this I think we got right up to the counter under the light. And she said, look, this is all you have to do. It's not scary. And I sat there and I was like, that's it? Like, if I knew that's all it took. But she showed it to me. And I mean, you watch videos on YouTube of how to fix brioche. And I'm like, I still don't know how to fix it. But she just, it was so simple to do, and I thought, thank goodness that I have her here, and like she recognized that right away, that I was in trouble, basically.
You had a project with so many lifelines, it looked like an ICU unit.
Yeah, exactly. But we got through it, and it's a great. I mean, it looks great when it was all said and done. But I thought to
Those
myself,
lifelines all pulled out.
yeah, now that they're out of there, lime green lifelines in a red, gray, and cream shawl. Didn't want to miss them.
Isn't it funny how knitters can sort of recognize the various looks of panic, like concern and then fear and then outright panic?
Well, let me tell you, that's when a knitter gets quiet, is when something's going on that they can't figure out. It's like, oh, how many rows am I going to have to pull out of that? So,
Or a sudden intake of breath.
yeah.
Like, everyone's like, oh no, what's happening now? My body resorts to a hot flash if I make a bad mistake or I think I've made a bad mistake.
Oh, have you been knitting along and think, oh my gosh, I've really messed up, and you stop and you rip it all back, way back, and start from where you've ripped out and realize it wasn't wrong. You had done it right to
Yeah,
start with,
yeah,
and then you've
yeah.
just ripped out, this much.
Yep.
That is the worst feeling.
Yeah.
Sometimes knitting needs time out.
Well, that's a good point.
There's some things in timeout that have been there for quite a while. They're not forgiven yet.
Yeah, and I generally have a kind of a time limit at night. I'm not going to work on any stitch pattern thing after such a clock at night, like 9 or 10 at night. I'm really not going to do anything complicated, because in the morning I'll look at it and think, what in the world was I doing?
Well, I've also learned knitters like to have a couple projects, maybe 3 going on. And I know I've said to my family, I have these little bags, they're future projects, because I fall in love with a yarn or a sale comes about. So I faulted myself. I thought something is really wrong with me to do this. And now I've learned a lot of knitters do that. They all have their cubby holes with stash yarn. And
When you have your
We're planning
public
on-
knitting, so you can talk and knit,
Oh, yeah.
and you need some stockinette,
Yeah.
or like I would knit a sock in public if I were on the straight, highway part.
Yeah, just knitting, on the
yeah.
foot or
But
whatever.
then save the lace or the cables or something for your quiet time
Yeah.
knitting.
Heel turns.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Lots of coffee and
How many projects do you have on a needle?
Oh boy, let's see. Let me think about that. Yeah, there's something, a yarn with a scarf I probably am not interested in, but it's been there a couple years. Part of me thinks, when are you going to let that go? But now, just 2. I'd say 2. And this is our latest, Luna. Now the sleeves, did you do the sleeves like this too, or have you done the sleeves yet?
I did the sleeves with the ribbing.
Oh, did you? Okay, I decided to
Yeah.
not do the ribbing.
You can make
Keeping
it your
the
own.
pattern of.
Right. Very pretty. That looks actually really nice.
Oh, thank you.
Making me rethink my decision.
Yeah, well,
See, this is a knit along.
Yeah, I figured if you didn't do the ribbing on the bottom, will Ellen be doing the ribbing on the sleeve or not? So I was forced to decide.
How about you? How many projects?
just 2.
2 projects.
Always 1 sock and then the Spectra. That's it.
Now, I'm guessing this, you buy yarn with the project in mind?
Now I do. So I used, when I first started, it was project based. And then I branched out because I started seeing nice colors and things. But I realized I couldn't knit it fast enough. So I stopped buying, and now I do it by project because I don't know, that stresses me out. Just sitting there and nothing's happening to it. So, yeah, no, I buy by project.
I'm getting there. But I've got too many. But I buy by project, but then they sit. They're in the lineup,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I
saying,
say
knit me,
that,
knit me,
but
knit me.
there are times when I come in here and I'm like, oh, if I don't buy it today, it might not be here when I come back. So, but that's rare these days. But I do have a small stash at home.
Now you're getting personal.
Probably no, it's less than 15 skeins.
I don't want to talk about stash.
Yeah.
What
this
about
is-
projects on needles, Jeff?
Right now, I have a couple pairs of socks, a couple of scarves that aren't for me, so I don't want to wake them, and only one sweater. I usually have a couple of sweaters going at a time, and I have a blanket going. But it's just that's like when I don't have anything else that I really want to knit on, then I'll pick up the blanket because it's just a scrap blanket. I ended up
Make
having
good
this
use of it.
huge basket. Well, you probably do too, knitting socks all the time. This huge basket that's just sock yarn.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so I bought some undyed yarn, sock weight yarn, and I'm holding it double and just knitting and just picking it up as it just reach down the basket and grab a skein and start knitting just to try to use up all these scraps because I hate to throw them away.
Yeah. Well, that's what happened with the shawl, the brioche shawl that I made. I had just enough. I weighed it and I'm like, oh, I can get a pair of shorty socks out of that. So I cast it on immediately because otherwise it would have been thrown in a bag somewhere and, but I'm like, I've got to use it up. I just can't handle it just sitting there. So
Do you have a good shorty sock pattern?
I'm going to tell you that I don't really follow a pattern. I follow what fits
Yeah.
me. So I guess what I do is lots of trial and error of what I found out that I liked and what I don't like.
And that stays up. Like I want a shorty sock that
Yeah,
stays up.
I just knit a 5-round cuff. And then, but I find that a heel flap and gusset stays up for me versus like
Yeah.
short row heel, or because your heel sits in it, so it stays there. So while I've done short row heels and all that stuff, because they look the way you think a sock should look, I come back to the ones that I'm going to wear a lot and just put the heel flap and gusset in because they fit better.
I prefer heel flap and gusset. I think it fits my instep better.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you can customize the length of it and, everything. But, yeah, so I'm following patterns, but not a pattern. So,
I'm going to inspect that afterward.
How did you learn to do that? How did you learn to kind of fit your own foot?
a lot of probably just sock mistakes. I tell you, the biggest thing, if you look at patterns and everything, they tell you that you should build a lot of negative ease into them and that kind of thing. And I knit tons of socks like that, and I'm like, I hate them. I don't like that constricting feel. So I bumped my stitch counts up, and now I knit 72 stitch socks all the time for myself, and I love it. So
Do they still have a little bit of negative ease though, right?
there's a little, but I mean it's not that constricting feel.
No.
I don't like and I think that's why I don't like store-bought socks, because I don't like that tightness of them. They're snug enough to stay up, but they're not constricting, for lack of a better word, I guess. But so trial and error. And that's another reason why a lot of people got socks for a while, because it was like, well, I don't like the fit of them, so you can have them. If you like them, here, take them.
They don't know the difference. They've been buying store bought.
Yeah, it's like, if go ahead, take them. So,
Now, Now, do you like your socks to fit snug on your feet?
I don't know if I'm trying to think. I haven't knit socks for a while. I need to get back to my socks. I've been making like for my son and grandsons and husband. I like a little negative ease just because to fit them into shoes. Because usually my hand knit socks,
A little
I
heavier.
almost need to wear a boot.
Mhm.
I mean, I've actually bought some boots before when I was knitting up more socks. And sized them to hand knit socks just because I
Yeah.
love hand knit socks.
Mhm.
But they don't always fit in every shoe. But I've worn them out walking with tennis shoes in the winter just because I love them,
Yeah.
you know.
Keep your
But
feet nice
I'm
and
running
toasty.
out. I've worn them
Yeah.
out and I haven't replenished my
I
supply.
was gonna say, if you like them fitted, I started like right in the arch of my foot. I do like some ribbing just on the bottom of the sock, underneath
Mm.
part, and it makes it hug up into my foot, and I really like that.
Oh, I'm going to try
But
that.
just
That would
about,
be nice.
just like right in where the arch is in your foot, about that wide. So that's like, I started right after I finished doing the heel, then I do that on the bottom of the sock for an inch and a half or so, and then just finish it out regular.
It's like how they build into
Like a
athletic
sports-
socks.
like sports
yeah,
socks, yeah. That's
they
why I
build
started
that in
doing it,
there,
because
yeah.
I like them to hug up underneath my foot. It seems like it
You're
makes them
right. Athletic
feel
socks they now
nice.
design with.
Yeah, with that band
Yeah,
in there.
you're right.
I've never done it all the way around. I just do it on the bottom of the foot, the sock.
Mm.
I'm wondering if the
Just-
ribbing would wear a little better because of the.
I never noticed that it's different under my foot. It
Where
doesn't-
do your socks wear out? We're getting way off
Where do my
topic, but-
socks? Either in the toe or in the heel, the bottom
Like
of the heel.
mine's not, and my husband's too, and my son's. It's not right at the heel flap where the
Underneath your
reinforcement
heel?
is where you do that little diamond stitch or
Mhm.
whatever on the back, but it's under when your heel gets flat.
Yeah, on the pad of your heel,
That
kind
part
of. Yeah,
we
that's
that's
where
where
mine
we
is.
wear them out.
I think
Yeah.
mine is
Strike
from
your heel.
because
Yeah, I
I
had that with
wear
my
mine all the
first pair.
time barefoot. I mean,
Mhm.
Yeah.
without
yeah.
shoes in the house. I run around with just my socks on.
Mhm.
But then I saw this person who did. I think they added a yarn and knit just double for that spot maybe to reinforce.
I've heard of people doing that, but I've never done it.
So
It
it'd be
looks
like a padded
yours is
heel.
reinforced.
Well, it's
That's
slip. I put a slip stitch heel in this one, so it is a little thicker, but
Which is kind of like
um,
double knitting, so
yeah.
it does give, but that's
I
not
love
where I
that.
wear it out. But
Yeah,
that is
it's-
comfy to have.
Oh yeah,
I think to
absolutely.
have those behind your.
So you're here.
Is where you wear it.
yeah.
There.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the first pair I knit.
Darning,
did that.
darning,
I guess it was
darning.
yarn. Yeah, darning.
Have you ever knit
Multi-purpose.
baby things?
It's fun because I did like a little grandpa sweater for a couple and actually a niece, a great nephew, and grandson. And it's so fun because it's like a complete sweater with a little button band and the shawl collar, and it's just fun to have that complete thing with tens of thousands of fewer stitches than if I were making it for me.
And miniature.
Yeah, a miniature sweater for a miniature human.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
And some people I've seen, your first sweater class is a baby sweater. Sometimes people do, to try a new technique, they'll do a whole baby sweater. I always wanted to be a grandma since I was like in my 40s. It wasn't time yet, but I could not wait to be a grandma. And my kids knew it, but once they got married, I never bothered them about grandkids because there's no point in that. But then once I became a grandma, I felt like it was 10 times better than I thought it would be. A lot of things in life aren't like that, but I think grandparenting was one that I had all the feelings,
Oh, nice.
It's great.
I agree.
It's different.
It's different. Grandkids are great. I mean, you love them.
And you leave them.
You love them. You spoil them. You send them home with that bad habit.
You do.
Grandma, can I have a piece of candy? Oh, sure. You're going home in a few minutes. Go ahead. Have two.
I know, and I won't even
Oh.
explain all the things that my daughter-in-law's had to. People are like, why do they? Nate's mom, their grandmother taught them. Does that.
One of the things that I've noticed, just in the time that I've been with the shop, is that the ages. We have women of all ages around the table, and men, of course, too. But as you know, this is largely
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
they're like, we don't live in a community where we have all of our relatives in a compound. We move around as a society. We follow careers. We follow partners who are going to this and that. And when we are all together at the table, there are moms and aunts and sisters and whatever to share the kinds of knowledge and wisdom that your mother would share if she were there. My mother's passed away. She will never see my grandchildren, and so there's this opportunity to have a whole community of, I call them wise women, to share. And I've seen that with younger women come in, and women who are grandmothers saying it'll be fine, or girls that are having their first baby, I can say it'll be fine, and those are the kinds of roles that the physical community provided once upon a time, and that doesn't exist any place else that I've seen, other than, maybe here. I don't know, maybe it exists in a school where the women are together. I don't know. But I definitely have seen it here, and that's been incredibly valuable. I mean, Jeannie is like a mom to me, literally. Her daughter is like a sister, and the same with, and Whitney. Whitney is that next generation. She is the age of my oldest daughter.
I think I've seen it, not so much with myself, but with Kristen, when she moved and found a yarn shop. That's how she made friends. And then there were young mothers in there, or people and there were grandmothers in that group. And they took her in and mothered her and befriended her. And that was nice to see. And I don't think that would have happened anywhere else.
I think you're right. And I think it is the randomness of the people that come together. As you said when we first started, that we share the love of this thing that we do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it unites us, whether we're mothers, grandmothers, no children, men, whatever. I mean, we're all part of this community, and I don't know. It's really, I think it's really special. I think it's important. Anyway, thank you guys for being here and for sharing your thoughts. I value each of you very much, and the community that you're part of. So.
Oh, thank you for
Thank
that.
you. Yeah.
you.
Thank you
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.